nothing beats the personal meeting face to face.
Hmm.
It's been easier to connect digitally, but it's becoming harder to meet people actually in person. The best way really to understand who you are working with, even if it's just one time, but meet them in person.
Welcome back to Beyond the Ping Pong Table, the podcast that dives into workplace culture that puts people first. I'm your host, Farron Tabrizi, and today I'm here with Charlotte Hofbauer, our first international guest, all the way from Paris, France. She's a master of navigating multicultural corporate environments and fostering inclusive company cultures across continents. Fluent in 5 languages and experienced in roles from global marketing in Europe to supply chain management in China, Charlotte brings a wealth of knowledge on building cohesive, people first workplaces. Join us as she shares her insights into creating environments where every employee feels valued and connected. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Taryn. Thank you for having me in your podcast. I didn't know I'm the first international guest, so I'm
You
honored.
are. You went to school in Berlin, right?
Let's go. Yeah, I studied in Berlin. I'm from South Germany originally, and then moved from Berlin to Paris after my studies to work in mainly marketing so far. So
Can you
yeah,
walk us a little bit through your studies and your professional journey?
yeah, sure. So I studied business administration, management, and marketing. But all the way during my studies, I learned a lot of languages on the side. I traveled a lot. I really took the time also in my study holidays to go abroad. I did some volunteering in India, for example, went to China, did a lot of projects around my studies. So that makes me today really a fan of international topics, and enables me also to share a lot of experiences around that topic. So I'm happy to be here talking about that with you today.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And can you tell us about Bloom, the company you're currently with?
Sure. So Bloom's supply chain technology company. Bloom offers a platform that's a multi-model operating system, which helps companies to navigate their supply chains around the globe. So it facilitates communication. It's a whole collaborative platform. So all suppliers, all logistics service providers come together on this platform, and it helps to streamline operations to really be able to navigate with the most recent technology all your logistics flows and your productions.
Excellent. And what is your role specifically?
So I joined Bloom 2 years ago to set up the marketing for Bloom in Europe. The company is originally from the United States and has a big team in India, also in Hong Kong and other parts of Asia. But Europe has been a growing market, and so I was really there to connect the teams around the globe and make the marketing in Europe possible, aligning with the corporate strategy of Bloom, but also making sure it's being localized so that the prospects and customers in the European country feel addressed culturally as well in the right way.
Excellent. And what are your interactions? Are they daily, internationally? I think you had told me a little bit about like you guys have a small office and a small team in Paris.
Yeah, so for Bloom, we have an office in Paris, but we also have employees in other European countries.
Hmm.
We are part of WiseTech Global now, which makes us even more international and which adds a lot of other employees in the European region. So that's going to be a different scale now. But I'm just going to talk about Bloom and my experience so far. So that's, basically our main office is in Paris. And so,
Awesome. And
that's
so how often are you communicating though internationally with your team in India or in the United States?
definitely daily. We're
Daily.
having
Okay.
a super streamlined international culture. All my team is either based in India or also in the US, or also our sales team in the UK, in Germany. So it's really an international daily communication challenge also, but it's also a lot of fun.
So the first thing that comes to my mind is how does that work with all the different time zones and stuff?
So it's definitely on one side a challenge because, like for example, California, where the headquarter of Bloom is, it's 9 hour time difference usually. Uh,
Mhm.
Europe and then to India, you go in the other direction. So in the early morning, we'd want to be communicating with India, and in the evening, we'd want to be communicating with the US. And then
Mhm.
it's more challenging between India and the US. And so, yeah, you
Right.
gotta keep that in mind when to reach people. You also don't want to make people working in the middle of the night or responding to your late messages. But on the other hand, it's also an advantage because, for example, if you're organizing, let's say, an event and you need to get things done very last minute because, I don't know, whatever unexpected thing can happen, you can kind of work around the clock. Let's say I start working on the preparation in Europe until my workday ends. I pass it on to the US colleagues and they work during that day. Then they pass it on to India and they work during that day too. And when I wake up in the morning, things will have been done in a collaborative effort around the clock, so to say. So
That
that's being cool sometimes to be able
yeah.
to work like this.
Yeah, to kind of just figure out that flow. Do you feel like that was something that you were supported in when you came into this role or something you had to kind of figure out on your own?
I feel like it was already very natural within the company to follow this time zone difference because the company when I joined was already structured very internationally. So there was already established communication between, for example, Asia and the United States, and so Europe was kind of it's kind of nicely located in the middle. So for us, connecting to the both uh, regions is okay. It's working. The challenge between Asia and the US, I don't know about that. They must have had figured that out already before I joined. So
Yeah.
it's already working. It was working when I joined.
I'm really curious, this idea of work-life balance comes up a lot for us. What does work-life balance look like?
I think nowadays work-life balance. I mean, the initial thought is a lot to give more flexibility to employees to be able to have enough time and space for their free time. I would say so that flexibility in a way, for example, could contribute to work-life balance because, for example, if you're able to work from home 1 or 2 days a week, you can maybe have a better rest in your lunchtime, maybe arrange better with your kids. It provides a lot of benefits to feeling balanced and not having to hustle to the office Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, or I don't know.
Mhm.
And I think nowadays it's also a bit questioned because the more flexibility comes in working, and the more we blend our private life with work, for example, in home office, the more we are always pressured to be reachable, the less easy we can actually detach from work when we close our laptop and we're already in our living room. It can be that people struggle more actually to relax after work or to free
Mhm.
their mind, and so the stress just carries on with them at home. And I feel like this blending is also creating some stress that can go against a healthy work life balance.
Mhm.
So those two sides, I think, on the one hand, if you force your employees to the office every day, I think nowadays people would kind of get a bit frustrated and say, "Hey, this is too stressful. I need to commute every morning. I want to be able to also be relaxed at home sometimes, some days of the week." But then, yeah, it would be healthy, I think, also to see the fact that maybe establishing some kind of rules that after certain hours you don't need to be reachable by your managers because it's late or because I don't know, it's healthier. I just read an article today that also in California there is kind of a bill. Uh, by the government intended to, it's not gone through yet, but they want also to kind of ensure the right to disconnect from the workplace.
Hmm.
So some rules like this also in Europe. Some bigger German companies, for example, they block the email account at certain hours or during the week,
Oh,
so that you actually can't send out an email on Sunday, for example. And
interesting.
I think, yeah, this is something coming up, and also with regards to what we spoke about. If you're working internationally and you're working, I'm working with Asia. I send out emails naturally at hours that are very late for them, and maybe they feel the pressure to respond because they think it's something important. But actually, it might be really unhealthy to always be reachable and to always have your phone or your work account linked to your phone, and yeah, yes, you see where I'm going.
Very interesting. So, based on your experiences in Europe, Asia, and America, how do cultural attitudes towards work-life balance differ?
In Europe, especially, but then I'm very very careful making assumptions here, because I feel like in Europe the discussion around work-life balance is going very very far already, and new work is a big topic, and Gen Z, or I don't know how you call it, is pushing to have more focus on their private well-being and less focus on work. I feel like in certain areas or in certain companies in maybe some Asian countries, back then, when I was there, it was less of a topic, or flexibility at the office was, for example, in China where I was working, was less a discussion. So I feel like it's different, but I'm very careful to make a generalization about that, because also, for example, working with India in the tech industry, I feel like in India things are moving very fast. Also in Bangalore, there are
Mm.
very modern tech companies where employees have about the same discussion on work-life balance as we do, and I wouldn't generalize any big difference. I think that it's a topic that keeps moving very fast, and it's a very international topic. And maybe, yeah, maybe in some state-owned companies in China, that's my experience. Some years ago, it could have changed by now, but maybe there, the focus is still more on following strict rules, working hard, but then not being that flexible, on
Hmm.
about not having that many holidays. But I don't know. I feel like these things keep changing very fast these days. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how it's evolving.
Okay, so let's get into cross cultural communications. With your experience as a multilingual international project manager, how do you navigate the complexities of cross cultural communication within multinational teams?
I think first it's important to be aware and sensitized about cultural differences.
Hmm.
I mean, it seems obvious, but in the end, if you bring multinational teams together, usually I think most companies don't really speak about the fact that there are cultural differences. You just throw people together, and then somehow it works out. But it's nice to, if companies can offer some kind of training on that, or bring some, shed some light on cultural differences, because it's an interesting topic,
Yeah.
and it leads to many differences in perception, and also to some misunderstandings. So yeah, it's important to be aware of the differences. Um, for example, if you think of communication between people, let's say Eastern way of communication is a bit more indirect. Um, for example, I learned very much when I was working in China that people don't like to say no. The word no doesn't even exist in
Mm.
Chinese language. There are words that express kind of something similar, but there is no single word saying no. So you find a way saying, maybe, it's, I don't know, find a way to speak around to make it clear that it's a no. But if you don't know that, if you're not aware that people struggle saying no, you would expect if they don't say no that it means yes, and so this can lead to some confusion. Um,
Yeah.
I experienced that at the beginning, but then if you're aware of it, you find ways around. You find ways to ask more direct question to figure out is there any objection, or is there any issue or not. Um, then, for example, where am I going? Yeah, there are just differences in communication. In the Western world, it's very encouraged to criticize, also to question things and to come up with a very straightforward opinion on things. That's how we are trained also in our school system, to always question things and to make kind of a differentiated opinion on things happening. Whereas in Eastern culture, and I'm always very careful to generalize, but it's in Eastern culture, it's more people are more careful about what they say. For example, in hierarchies, you wouldn't really question someone up further up in the hierarchy ladder in a meeting.
Hmm.
If someone's more senior, maybe you would be very careful in speaking out anything that's not in line with what that person thinks or wants. And so these things need to be considered. You might offend someone if you speak out very directly a contrary opinion. Uh,
Yeah.
that these are just things to consider. But then it doesn't mean on the same side, on the other side, you have those differences. But it doesn't mean every individual in the Eastern culture never says no. It's like you cannot really generalize this as well, or put people too much in boxes and say, okay,
Hmm.
because I'm working with someone from an Eastern country, the person's going to be like this. I think you need to be also careful of these stereotypes or generalizations. I think it's important to also find out which individuals you're working with, rather than which nationalities are they from or which cultures are they from. Like, who's figuring out who are the people I'm working with and what motivates them and how are they structured or how do they behave or think, and make it work also uniquely with your team and not also only based on cultural differences. It's can be a bit too generic. um,
Yeah.
and things are also changing. I feel like, if, for example, to go back on my example, if we say Eastern systems are different to Western, maybe nowadays they're not that different anymore. Maybe nowadays we've been communicating so much with those nationalities, countries, that people are not that different anymore, and people cannot be put that much anymore in those boxes that we used to put them, due to all those barriers that don't exist anymore between countries, due to all the digital communication we have. Maybe we need to re-evaluate also those differences after some
Yeah.
time.
You brought up a good point of like not just understanding the culture, but understanding the person or the
Yes.
people that you're working with. Well, that's really easy to do when I think, when you're at an office environment, you could go, after work, step out to a pub, have a beer and get to know each other. What ways do you try to get to know your fellow employees that are cross continents?
So I think even in the time where we have all these digital means to connect with everyone all the time with video calls, I think nothing beats the personal meeting, face to face, one
Hmm.
on one. I think it's been easier to connect digitally, but it's becoming harder to meet people actually in person, because also companies might not put the same investment in business travels anymore, because you can't just connect with
Mm.
right. And in my experience, it's the best way really to understand who you are working with, even if it's just one time, but meet them in person. However, try to meet them. If the company
Hmm.
doesn't want you to meet them, try to explain or find a way to meet them at least once at the beginning of a project. Try to get the team together once to see and feel who we are going to be working with.
Hmm.
Might be expensive, and yes, sometimes it's not possible, but if it's possible somehow, I would very, very strongly recommend that.
Yeah.
I think it's also a bit dangerous to with the digital means to detach completely from meeting people in person,
Yeah.
and to throw
I
people
agree.
together from different worlds, and not have them realize who they are working with, and kind of not have the understanding of who is actually that person behind the screen.
Yeah.
Where is that person from? What, yeah, all of these factors around. Um, but then yes, sometimes it's not possible, and then you as well, you got to go with what you can do digitally. So besides, I mean, if you really want to know or understand how the other one works, or who you're talking to, it's good to do some maybe virtual coffee meetings apart from work team meetings. Let's say you're meeting, and I'm I'm struggling to do that also because you're so busy during your day, and you have
Hmm.
already so many meetings. You don't want to schedule extra meetings. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, reflecting about it, that's what you need to do if you want to have some talking points also apart from work. Um, I know some companies have like, in my previous company, they had like one-to-one matchmaking calls that were scheduled with the system, so that every Friday you would meet a random person in the company for a one-to-one
Hmm.
call.
Yeah.
Uh, that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's difficult if you don't have a mechanism like this to get people motivated to schedule those calls, I feel like. So it's good to
Hmm.
have mm, mm, some virtual coffee call scheduled already for the employees, and then you can still bail on it.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
the motivation.
Right. Like having it built into your workday rather than being like an extra thing, like an extra credit thing you do to get to know your people. Almost like making it mandatory, you know?
And maybe every Friday it's already scheduled in the
Yeah.
calendar. You don't need
Yeah.
to do much, and then you appreciate it, even though
Yeah.
you've not done it out of feeling too busy. Um,
Exactly. And I think like also to what your point is about meeting in person, it may seem expensive. It might seem like a luxury to be able to send your people off, but I think it's an investment in your people and probably the longevity. If you get to make those personal connections from the beginning, it shows that your company cares and that they're invested in you and that camaraderie among your team. How do you believe leadership styles need to adapt when managing teams from varied cultural backgrounds? Are there any like specific traits or strategies that you've adopted?
I think if you're leading a multinational team, you maybe might want to consider how leadership works in specific regions, and then either try to adapt to that in those specific regions, or address openly with the team how the team feels good to work. So, for example, if in specific region it's very common for the leader of a team to make all the decision and the employee is just kind of consulting, or if the employee should actually make the decision and the leader is more overseeing what's happening but putting the autonomy on the individual. That can be two different,
Mhm.
for example, of working. And depending on maybe the region, it's not necessarily the same approach. And so if you're managing a team where people are based in different regions, might want to consider that, and also ask your team how they are used to be working, how they feel like they're working best, how much autonomy they want to take on themselves, and how much decision making should really be done by the leader of the team, the manager.
From your perspective, what are the key elements in building a truly inclusive company culture, specifically in the multinational environment?
So one key element I would say is to have an open discussion with people, to listen to how people perceive the company culture, to talk about what motivates people, to have an open communication also about some difficulties they might be facing.
Mm-hmm.
Have an open ear. Yeah, just to be sure whatever happens can be expressed, or any ideas can be expressed in a positive way as well. That'd be one point. Then, as I already said, being sensitive about cultural differences, but also making sure you're having a unique approach, and not stereotyping too much. Um, yeah, those two elements are key. Then definitely having investing in the human side of work, not only thinking about efficiency and numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
really seeing the people, and really investing in company culture. Even more important internationally, because yeah, it's even more challenging to get people together, and even the impact of frustration, or miscommunication can be really big.
Mm-hmm.
If you get some conflict, you really need to solve it on a bigger scale. So really putting also means to get people meet, investing in business travels, or setting up some team events internationally, even if it's virtual, investing in some kind of small programs that, or small team building programs that can be done ideally in person, but if
Yeah.
not virtually.
Yeah, for sure. You'd mentioned training earlier. Is training something that's pretty common in when working in multinational environments?
I think the bigger the company, the more common it is to have training on all sorts of things. So
Yeah.
if you have a good system
Specifically, yeah. Go ahead.
of training program, you can always include this topic in a way. Then if it's smaller companies, smaller teams, I think it's not so common to really put up a program for that. It's more, maybe you want to bring or highlight a specific person in the company or in the team that's aware of this subject, or experience, and that can be kind of the go-to person for those topics. So maybe you have, yeah, one person in the team where you know this person has a lot of sensitivity with people, and has maybe traveled a lot, or is sensitive about this topic, that you put this person as the responsible for culture, or I don't know, just even if it's just putting an eye on it every now and then.
Mm-hmm. On a more personal note, how has working in such varied cultural environments and engaging with your activities, your hobbies like yoga and ancient Chinese meditation impacted your professional worldview and approach to leadership?
I think it's a big plus. Being able to work in international teams, because if you find connecting points, when you're talking with your colleagues, like yoga, for example, if I find talking points that are apart from work, connected to Indian culture, or in China, for example, just being able to speak some Chinese, to show that I'm interested in their culture by having some knowledge about it, it breaks the ice barrier, and
Yeah.
people immediately open up on a different level to you, when they feel that you're trying to really understand them, even independent of the work. If it's your natural interest, this is really an icebreaker, and you can, yeah, closer connect to people. People open up more easily, and this makes also then any teamwork working better, I would say. People are more motivated to work with you if they have some connecting points, apart from
Yeah.
work. And
I love
especially
that.
if you meet people from other cultures, and they know some things, or learn some things about your culture, it's always nice. It's always adds some color to the interaction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, looking forward, how do you see the future of work evolving in multinational companies like Bloom, especially with regards to fostering inclusive, diverse, and adaptable company cultures?
I think that, yeah, with technology or the general developments, people get more and more easily connected across the globe from every corner. At any time, you can connect yourself with people. But as I said, on the other hand, it's more and more difficult to meet people in person uh, with that same reason. So I feel like it cultures are becoming more and more international through that digitalization. In any case,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the human element will be more and more of a focus topic in general. I mean, with AI,
Mm-hmm.
we got so much support on the efficiency side. I think that at one point we need to distinguish ourselves as human from the machine.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if we can do that internationally across cultures and get closer together by sharing artistic interests or philosophical interests or whatever it might be, sharing
Yeah.
anything, just sharing,
Yeah.
and being human, connecting also on an emotional level, not only on a efficiency level.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming more and more important, and I hope that uh, given the developments with AI, for example, I hope that this will also be more and more needed and more helping companies to succeed with the
Mm-hmm.
human element. So that's what I hope, and that's where I think people should focus on now.
I couldn't agree more. Like, not forgetting about that human connection. It's so important. I'm so glad you took the time on your Friday evening to meet with us here.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for inviting me.